Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome to my Tiny Talks podcast, the show where we'll dive into self-love, inner child healing, and discovering your soul's purpose. I look forward to chatting with you every single Sunday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's Tiny Talk. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my Tiny Talks podcast. I'm your host, Jessie Brown, and I am so excited to dive into week 39 of Tiny Talks with you all. In today's episode, we're going to chat all about how changing your thinking and changing your identity can change your life. Because everything that we think, we believe. What we believe is how we act and how we respond and how we live our life. And so my goal of today's episode is to dive into how much our thinking and belief in the things we tell ourselves is beginning to shape our reality. And so for today, I'm going to dive into some points of how we can begin to take action to change our thinking, to then begin to change our life. So before I dive into some of the points, I really just wanted to go back for a little bit and to just kind of tell my own story for a quick second of how this idea kind of came to mind. And so I began my personal development journey. It'll be 2 years in September that kind of personal development was introduced into my life. And obviously I knew about, improving yourself and becoming your best version and having goals and whatever. But for me, my personal development journey really began 2 years ago. And before that, I can just reflect back and remember how my thinking was. My thinking was so small scale, where I would spend so much of my time thinking about yesterday, last week, last year, thinking 10 years down the road, whatever it was. And I would spiral. And I remember my mindset was so toxic. And mind you that prior to beginning my personal development journey, I had gone through some pretty significant life events that really shook me up mentally and caused me to look at the world differently. And I think that now, had that not happened, first of all, I wouldn't be on here sharing with you all because it truly did push me towards my dharma and my purpose. But I can just remember thinking back, even as a child, I had such negative thinking. And I just remember being so sassy and quick to respond and just very rushed mentality. And that would trickle into so many areas of my life where I remember just feeling overwhelmed really easily, triggered really easily, angry really easily, sad really easily. I had no control of my body or my thoughts. And I was constantly operating out of a state of a survival mechanism. Right? I was dissociating a lot. I was out of my body. I was very confused. I was overwhelmed. I was exhausted. I had a lot of body pain. I was basically living in an active trauma response for a lot of my life without realizing it. And I only really began to realize it when I started to study social work and work in the social work career and work with folks in the trauma healing lens and go to therapy myself. But so the reason I'm sharing all this with you is because I know how powerful it is of changing our thoughts. Because when we do change the way we think, we do change the way we live. Because everything that we tell ourselves is what our brain believes to be true. Think about that for a moment. What you tell yourself is what your brain believes to be true. So think about that. How many times do we say we're going to do something, but we put but, or we put a limited thought, or we sell ourselves short, right? We tell ourselves that we failed before we've even begun. And so again, the goal of today's episode is to dive into some ways that we can just begin to challenge our thoughts, challenge the way that we think, because our brain, as much as we're told that our brain stops developing and growing around 25 years old, it's different for men and women, but the fact that we're told that is just kind of a setback in a way, because although yes, our brain in some way, shapes, or forms stops maybe learning certain things in a different way, but as far as our personal development, in our growth, and our mindset, and our mental health, and the way we think, and the way we live, fundamentally, yes, our brain might stop growing. But it's always communicating. There is always neuroplasticity, which is basically our brain's capability of rewiring itself. We have over 85,000 thoughts a day. That would not be possible if our brain stopped growing. We're able to catch and change our thoughts. We can change our life. And I know that this is true because I've done it. And no, I am nowhere near an expert. I nowhere near have perfect confidence, perfect life, perfect mindset. In fact, for me right now, it's kind of 50-50, where I'm working on it really, really hard, but I'm aware of it. And that's the first step, is just becoming aware of your thoughts, aware of where you're at with this. Are you even so much in your head that you forget that you're even in your head because that's just become your reality? Because I know that I lived there for a long time, where when I started to come back into my body, it felt really, really unsafe. And I would constantly go into that state of panic and freeze and fawn, of just shutting down, feeling so seen. And so when we begin to bring awareness to those small conversations we have with ourselves on a day-to-day basis, they really matter in the bigger scheme of things more than sometimes we think that they do. And so the first point that I have of how we can begin to change the way we think is to just show up. Show up. Whatever that thing is that you've been telling yourself you're going to do, why aren't you doing it? The point of this point of showing up is the things that you don't feel like doing, do it anyways. I'm sitting here right now on a Sunday morning recording podcasts. I have a full to-do list. I have a full list of things that I need to do. It's a beautiful day outside. Would I rather go outside and hang out at the beach or go hang out with friends? 100%. But I know that this is going to bring me long-term fulfillment because this is my goal. This is where my values are. And so where are those areas that you're letting yourself off the hook? Because when we begin to show up and just do something anyways, oftentimes we'll thank ourselves more for doing it than not doing it. And that's how you know that it's in alignment, because if you don't care if you do it anyways, it likely isn't bringing you any kind of fulfillment. And so maybe it's a question of removing that thing from your life. But when we begin to show up and show up consistently, that builds confidence. And with confidence and with that growth mindset, change is able to happen. And when we're able to tackle small goals, it allows us to then begin to crush bigger goals. But it starts with just showing up. Changing all those excuses and things you're telling yourself and just show up. Start the thing. Put one foot in front of the other. Start the book. Start the podcast. Start the YouTube channel. Start the vlog. Whatever it is. Just start. You don't have to have all the answers. But it's about interrupting our thought patterns and changing them. That we can do things. We will do things. My next point is to just find an anchor, or find something or someone or whatever it is that just believes in you. Because we all need something to believe in when we have excuses, when we feel overwhelmed, when we don't want to get out of bed, when we don't want to do the things. Because the purpose of an anchor is to ground you when your mind and external factors are just pulling you in so many different directions. So it's about finding that one thing, that bigger mission of why. For me, it's that I want to empower as many people as I can to get outside their comfort zone, to discover your purpose, discover your dharma. So find what is your bigger picture. What is your anchor? Maybe that's your family. Maybe that's your partner. Maybe that's your kids. Maybe that's yourself. Who's to say? But when we're able to find an anchor, it allows us to stop those thought patterns of remembering why we began in the first place. Because whenever I want to let myself down or not do things, it reminisces in the back of my head of, You're letting yourself down. This is what you promised yourself. And it spirals in the back of my head until I do the things that I know I'm supposed to do. And so finding that one thing. My third point is to ask why. And I always find this one funny because if you think about toddlers and kids and when they're discovering the world, they'll ask why about everything. Why is the sky blue? Why is a tree that color? What is this? Why is that like that? Why is that like that? You'll answer. Why? They're curious. They're growing. They're evolving. And I think that when we begin to change our thinking, to change our life, it's important that we begin to ask ourselves why in so many areas of our life. Become curious. Become curious about your thoughts. Become curious about why you think the way that you do, why you react the way that you do, why you respond the way that you do, why you do the things that you do, right? Getting curious again, getting to know yourself. Because if we've been stuck for so long in a pattern and our thinking has been the same, it often comes down to asking ourselves why that is. Are we maybe projecting what our mom and dad would have responded? Are we maybe responding out of our inner child? Are we responding out of a way that we think will please other people? Right? So getting to know yourself, asking yourself why it is that you do certain things, why it is you even want to change your thinking, why is it you want to change your life? Because if you're listening to this podcast, it's likely because some part of you wants to change, wants to grow, wants to become the best version of yourself. And so you're trying to fill your mind with different areas and aspects and tools and things to help you get there. And so become curious about why that is. My fourth point of ways that we can begin to change our thinking is, of course, one that I'm sure we all knew was coming, and that's to step outside your comfort zone. And this is something that is so close to my heart because, of course, it's something that I'm so passionate about, but I actually have a turtle tattooed on my right arm. And a lot of people just think it's a cute turtle tattoo and that I like turtles, which is true. But the story behind my turtle and the reason that it's facing outwards is because I really viewed my inner child and my youth self as a turtle in a shell. And sometimes I would peek out and check out the world, but then I would go back into my shell because I was too scared. And I remember when I began my personal development journey and I started to go down that road, I noticed that I was able to peek my head out a little more. I was a little more confident. I was able to move around a little bit more. I was less scared, less resistant. And that all came from stepping outside my comfort zone. And so the reason that I got this tattooed is because I know what it's like to live your life in a shell. I know what it's like to want to protect yourself so much and keep yourself so small in a little bubble. But when we begin to step outside of our comfort zone and change our patterns and change our behavior, and we begin to catch them, we're able to grow. Because one of the biggest ways that we can grow and to challenge our thinking is to actually challenge ourselves and get out of our comfort zone. Because when we get out of our comfort zone, we're allowing our mind to rewire itself. Because often if it's keeping us small, it's because it's telling ourselves a story. But when we get outside of our comfort zone, we're almost proving our brain wrong. Yeah, brain, at one time you had to keep me safe and you had to do whatever, but you don't need to do that right now. Thank you, and honoring for ourselves how our mind and body are responding, because they're responding in a certain way for a reason, because it likely kept you safe at some point in your life. But when we begin to step out of our comfort zone, our mind is able to evolve and to change and to rewire itself, which is then, of course, going to pour into changing our life in the trajectory of ways and areas in which we're trying to grow. My fifth point is that once we are able to change our thinking, we're able to look at things from a different view. Because changing your thinking also means being open to other opinions. And other opinions, especially if they challenge your own. I can remember being someone so stuck in my ways to the point that when I think back, I'm like, wow, I must have been hard to deal with. Because we begin to be so stuck in our own ways that we think that that's the only way. It's the only way to do things. And I really learned a lot about this during my spiritual journeys, that there's no one way to do things. There's no one opinion. There's no one value. There's no one job. There's no one whatever. Everything and everybody is unique. And if what you're expressing is your truth and what I'm expressing is my truth, who is it for either of us to say that the other person is wrong? Because when we begin to just be curious of how or why someone's thinking or responding a certain way, we're likely able to dive into maybe what that person has gone through and how they view the world, but we might also be able to learn something. We can teach each other, hey, I view this way, you view it that way. Let's kind of go back and forth and see why that is. But I think we get so stuck in our sureness that we're unable to allow our brain to look at things differently. And that allows us to become fixated and almost stuck in our life. So beginning to look at things from a different view. Get up higher. Look at them differently. Become curious. I've viewed this way my whole life. I wonder if I could look at it differently. I think that was a huge theme that happened for all of us during the pandemic. It was almost like 50-50. If half people viewed things this way, the other half viewed it that way. There was no way that they could interchange. And I think that we become like that in so much of our life that we forget that everybody has experiences and things that they've gone through. And so if you believe in something, you believe in it for a reason, but also that it doesn't mean that it's the only way to think or be. So being curious about that. My next point of ways to change your thinking is to slow down. We are such creatures of go, 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 doing the same things, waking up, getting ready, and yes, routine is great and fabulous, but we get so stuck in doing the same things, going to the same coffee shop, sitting at the same desk, doing the same paperwork, right? We get so stuck. And that we never really take the time to take in our environment and to appreciate the things around us. And when we're able to slow down, it allows us to be more mindful. And it also allows us to be more mindful of things that resonate. So next time you go to work, I encourage you to maybe look at a different part of the building you're walking in. Maybe glance up from just straight in front of you and look around when you're walking. Right? Become curious of why things are the way that they are. And just slowing down. And I had an episode a couple weeks ago about stopping and smelling the roses, and that's exactly what it was about. Because we just go, and we forget to take in all the beauty and things that are around us. And it's oftentimes I hear, stories of people getting older and they're like, wow, I wish I would have just slowed down and appreciated life. But the thing is if your heart is beating right now and you are listening to me, you have the capability right now to put this into effect. It doesn't matter if you're 5, 8, 10, 20, 30, 80. It doesn't matter how old you are. We all have the capability to slow down and to become more mindful. Because when we're more mindful, our mind is also allowed to take in more things, to find gratitude. Finding gratitude is huge with changing the way you think and changing the way you live. So slow down for a moment. Take in your environment. Take in your surroundings. Appreciate the things that are around you. Number 7. This is probably my favorite point on changing your thinking, changing your life. And that's to eliminate the excuses and creating solutions. I am someone who absolutely despises the word but. If I hear someone having such flow in a sentence and they're going to do this and they're going to do that and then they say, but blank. Instantly, it just turns me off. Because yes, I think that there is barriers and there's sometimes times when we have to adapt and shift and intervene and do certain things a certain way to make it happen. But when we have that fixed mindset of but. So for example, I would like to go to the gym, but it's already 8 o'clock, and by the time I get back, it'll be 9:30, whatever it is. But we set ourselves up for that, right? I would take that course, but I'm not sure if I remember how to write a paper, right? When you can see how when we have all these excuses, it keeps us in a box and it keeps us so small. Because having excuses is oftentimes just a cover for wanting to stay in your comfort zone. Because if we have excuses and we're putting things off, it's often because they scare us or they're hard. But the things that scare us and the things that are hard to do are the things that are going to make us grow and evolve the most. And so just imagine eliminating the excuses and becoming more curious and open and imagining what your life could look like if you just did it. If you just found a way to make it happen. Because there's always a way to make it happen. Sometimes it takes sacrifices and shifting to make things happen. But when we create blocks, we're letting ourselves off the hook, which, as I've said multiple times, trickles into lowering our confidence. And then excuses become stronger. And when excuses become stronger and we don't take action, we're kind of proving ourselves right in a way. And I think we do that a lot, where we say all these excuses and we don't do things, but then we kind of prove ourselves right, which makes us feel like we made the right choice. But it's so not true. And so I always try to tell myself, I will go to the gym. I am going to do this. There's no but. Because as soon as we put but in front of something, it crushes it. And I remember watching a manifestation video several months ago, and I remember them saying there is 0 point of even being curious or open about life if you're even going to throw in the word but. Because as soon as we do that, there's a block. There's a block that I can't do this. And as soon as our mind thinks we can't do something, we don't try, we don't take action, and we will never get results. And so those are my 7 points of ways that are just helpful to begin to change your thinking. Ways that we can begin to slow down, to catch ourselves, to eliminate excuses, to just take action, to step outside our comfort zone, right? To look at things differently. Because changing the way that we think in our own mind is so much more powerful than I think we give it credit. Because I remember when I first began my personal development journey, the first thing that I did was sit down with a piece of paper and write, I am strong, I am beautiful, I am successful, I am this, I am that. And although at the time it sounded like a whole bowl of Maloney, over time I started to believe it. And I noticed that whenever my confidence and self-worth and self-love gets lower, and I just tell myself those positive affirmations or listen to positive affirmations or encouraging speeches, or I just ingrain that in my head of just like, yes, we can do it. We got this. Let's go. It changes the narrative. And I just want to say one last thing. Imagine those times where you had those people in your life that were just so encouraging and just inspired you. I remember having this, like, playing for school teams, playing on sports teams. There's always those people and those parents that are so encouraging. You got this, driving you to the gym, getting you to those places, right? Getting rid of all those excuses of why you can't go. And so you take action. But so as we grow older, it's about finding that accountability with ourselves to eliminate those excuses and make it happen. Make a game plan and go for it. Change the way you think, change the way you live, change the way you act, change the way you love, change the way you respond. It all trickles into the same pool. I want to thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart, as always, for tuning into this week's episode of Tiny Talks. I truly hope you guys enjoyed, and I cannot wait to jump back on the mic and chat with you all next week. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into this week's episode of Tiny Talks. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at JessieBrown13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next week. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.